Here's why the Indians should be your team if you don't have a team. Number one, resiliency. If your team and all of our teams have suffered gut-wrenching defeats before, how often has your team, our teams, failed to rebound emotionally from that? I've been talking about this nonstop when it comes to the Falcons all offseason. I don't think they're going to be able to emotionally rebound after what happened in the Super Bowl. I don't think so. The windows can be so tight, can be so small that when you don't take advantage of it, it's so hard to get back there. You can just hit the skids. The Indians are trying to rebound and doing so in historic fashion after losing in historic fashion, blowing a 3-1 series lead in the World Series. In the World Series. Do you remember when the Indians went up 3-1 and they had a game 5 at Wrigley and then 6 and 7 in Cleveland? And everybody just said, well, don't even bother winning at Wrigley. Why not celebrate in front of your fans in 6 or 7? It seemed like it was obviously going to happen. It was not even a question. And that's how close they were to celebrating. And then extra innings in Game 7 to a franchise that had never won in more than 100 years. The resiliency to come back and put together this type of season, forget winning 20 in a row, but just coming back and being competitive and winning the division and playing well and not letting you sink too far into that depression, that can remind us all of what our teams should do. But they're actually doing it after a big loss, after a gut-wrenching series loss. Number two, they're not a big payroll team. Odds are you root for a team that doesn't have all of the resources of the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Dallas Cowboys. Odds are you're not a Warriors fan from the Bay Area. You are rooting for a team and know that there's no way they can beat the Warriors unless there's a miracle. The Indians are a middle market team with a small payroll that's done it and built it the right way. They have drafted and developed all of these guys. They have developed guys that are not household names and yet should probably be more popular than they are even in their own sport. But they're under the radar. They're completely under the radar, and yet they've won 20 games in a row and went to the World Series Game 7 last year. They're not a super team. Last year, I couldn't root for the Cubs. Not because I've got anything against the Cubs. The Cubs were a super team. Yeah, they drafted and developed guys like Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant. Rizzo they really traded for, but they had signed Jason Hayward. They had spent more money than anybody on John Lester. They had spent a ton of money on John Lackey. They had spent a ton of money on Ben Zobrist. They were built as a machine to win. Not this Indians team.
Come on, Damon. Wake up.
The manager, Terry Francona. Terry Francona is the ultimate redemption story. This is a guy that won not one but 2 World Series in Boston and should have been a forever hero there. And what happened? Ownership, a classless, lowbrow ownership, ran him out on a rail because they had one October collapse, really a September collapse, where they were in the first place and then lost all of those games, I believe, 18 of 19 or something, to then fall out of the playoffs. And that was just a disgrace that in the offseason, the ownership could not handle and spread rumors about his marriage, about his painkiller use, about what type of guy he was. This is a man that helped steer the franchise to its first World Series in 86 years, and they dumped all over him. And he stepped away, and he comes back not with a huge market team, not with some type of vanity job. He didn't come back with the Dodgers. He didn't come back with the Yankees. He comes back with the Indians, okay? He comes back with the Indians. And this is Terry Francona's redemption tour. How many of us would love to shove it in the faces of one of our former bosses? And last year he did that by sweeping the Red Sox. I mean, this is an easy manager to get behind. The Indians have everything that you would root for